Okay, welcome to the session today. This is the third in our session of Summer Success Stories. So we're listening to people who have been teaching online over the summer and hearing some of their challenges and successes. So thank you for joining us. The session today is called The Online Opportunity, a New Perspective in Student Engagement. And our presenter is Dr. Christina Raphaëlle Haldane. She's an assistant professor in applied voice in the Fountain School of Performing Arts here at Dalhousie. So, Christina, I'm going to turn it over to you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. It gives me a great pleasure to be here and to discuss with you all our online teaching opportunity. As we all prepare for this fall term at Dalhousie, unlike any other, I feel it's a really great thing that we can come together and enjoy some of these community building opportunities. A lot of the time when we are course building at this point, as we move forward into the fall term, it's very much a solitary activity. So I think it's exciting that we have these opportunities to share our thoughts. So when I'm discussing a new perspective, please bear in mind, this is very much my own perspective. My own perspective about teaching in the online environment shifted drastically this summer when I was given the opportunity to design a new course for the Faculty of Arts and Science called Artists as Entrepreneurs, and this new course was also going to be online. So this was the first time I was given the chance to completely develop an online course. However, I had a lot of apprehensions going into this process, and I'm sure many of you do as well. First of all, it's a new experience in terms of how to present the course material, and it's also very new in terms of how we're going to be engaging with our students. So I had a lot of apprehension about moving forward. However, during the summer and my course preparation and the delivery of this course, I found this to be a hugely beneficial learning process. And I learned many tools for the online teaching environment that I do feel are easily transferable for the face-to-face teaching environment. So as we move forward with our online opportunity, we do feel that this is a finite time in which we are preparing courses in this manner. However, I think that this time is going to be very useful as we move forward and when we are allowed to gather once more and teach face-to-face. So just to give you a very quick background information about myself. My approach is very much performance-led. Why? Because I am a performer. I'm a musician, and most of my career has been performing as a classical vocalist in operas and recitals and chamber music. And this past year was the first academic year that I had a teaching position, and I was so excited to join the Dalhousie community. And it was a great challenge and a welcome one. However, my approach to student engagement during my first year of teaching at Dalhousie was absolutely led by my own personal presence. Why? Because this was the way I had approached my performing career, and I really felt that engaging with students had many aspects of a live performance in terms of the communication and that synergy that one really enjoys when one is in a large group and discussing new ideas and sharing together. So this shift to academia was a very exciting one for me, and I very much enjoyed my approach to be led in this performing, aspect of things. I had one of my colleagues recently say to me that in terms of their lectures, that sometimes students brought dates to lectures, and I'm sure many of you really feel that there is such benefit in our face-to-face academic approach, and that students benefit from it too. And I love that idea of students bringing a pal or bringing a date to a lecture, because it's a really fun environment and one learns, and I just think that this is something that we've all embraced and enjoyed. So that joyousness of the face-to-face approach, how do we make that joyousness alive? How do we keep that alive as we transition to an online environment? And how do we make that successful, not only for ourselves, but also for our students? So when I made the transition to the online teaching environment, I found there were some huge surprises in terms of student engagement. I found an increase in student engagement. I don't mean the engagement that we experience when we're face-to-face in the classroom. What I'm talking about are things like meeting targets. Students were meeting targets in a way that I had never seen before. This was a summer course, and it was densely populated with items, and assessments. The course was about 3.5 weeks, as are most summer courses at Dalhousie, and admittedly, going into the process, I was worried that students wouldn't be able to keep up. However, in terms of meeting targets, students were meeting those targets in a way that I hadn't really been able to anticipate. As a result, they were also achieving very high grades. When I had designed the course, I had put in, let's say, a small level of organized chaos in how students might meet their targets, given the experience that I had in the past year at Dalhousie. Our students at the Fountain School, for example, are incredibly engaged. They're in subjects that they love, and that student engagement is alive and really, really exciting. However, sometimes for some of them it is a challenge to meet all our assessment targets. So I do feel that our online teaching environment gives us a really exciting opportunity to bring some of these tools forward online and also face-to-face. So during this discussion, I'm going to go over a few strategies for engagement in the online teaching environment that I feel worked well for me. I'm going to be looking at organized course flow, the concept of bite-sized video content, software options for experiential learning, developing instructor presence, course brand, and also building relationships with your team. So in terms of an organized course flow, what does that mean? Suddenly we are moving all our course notes and our lecture plans onto Brightspace. Some of us might have been doing that before, but now we're organizing it in a slightly more concise way. And I feel that the visual course flow on Brightspace really helps to keep students on track. And also the ability to organize everything in a chronological order of tasks. This allows us to lead our students through these tasks and enables them to have success in their work. So in terms of my own approach to an organized course flow, I was dividing everything up into weekend modules, and I'm sure many of you are doing so now in your preparations. Each module was always consistently organized in terms of the flow. A short intro video from myself was the first thing students would have a look at. Then there was the list of readings and my own review notes for those readings, and also followed by any support material that might be necessary for that module. In terms of the review notes, I felt this was a beneficial thing to include. Some students had accommodations, for example, where they required note-taking in class, and this was a way to ensure that all students had access to notes that were applicable to the readings. Then, after the modules that were organized in that weekly setup, always in chronological order according to date, I would have the live synchronous events, for example, office hours or guest speakers, assignments and quizzes, and participation discussion threads, or any sort of assessments that were clued in for that particular module and week. So when each student would go in to their Brightspace, it was very easy for them to see all the tasks that they had to do for that week. And they were able to see their tasks in that chronological order. I had many students refer to me over email that they loved this order and that they found it so easy to understand what they needed to do. And in a way, I find that although it might seem completely intuitive that this would be the way to do things, I think that this is something that might have been missing sometimes in our standard lecture format that's not so tied into Brightspace. Many of my students, for example, over the past year when we were teaching face-to-face, would find challenges with just meeting those dates as we had discussed. And for some of them, because a lot of the work I do is teaching applied voice lessons in a one-to-one setting. So I do have a lot of personal contact with students. And sometimes it would be a situation where we would have to sit the student down and go over their diary just to make sure that they're noting down their tasks in chronological order so that they can meet their tasks. However, I did find that Brightspace really did that job for us as teachers, but also for students. And students are used to seeing things lined up in the online environment. So I think they found it very, very beneficial in terms of being able to meet their targets. For example, the class I did in the summer was a class of 35 students. Out of those 35, 33 of them were meeting targets consistently. I had also specified that no assignments were to be assessed past the due date, and students really lived up to that rule, and they all submitted their assignments on time. And I made sure to let students know when they were doing that so successfully by sending them group emails, for example, to say, wow, well done, you know, all 35 of you have submitted your assignments on time, and this is really contributing to your success as individuals and also as a group. In terms of the assignments and how I decided to lay those out in Brightspace, again, there was always a chronological order, and this was a consistent approach throughout, so students always knew what to expect. Each assignment did have a short intro video, and followed by instructions and the method of assessment, any support material that would aid in creating the assignment, and also an example of what the assignment should look like. I feel that in the face-to-face classroom environment, it's much easier for students to reach out and contact faculty, especially sort of after class. Oh, I don't understand this, and they need an explanation on something, and it's very organic in terms of passing them on that information and ensuring that they feel on track. So in the online environment, I really feel that this order and these examples really help to show students exactly what needed to be done when they lacked that face-to-face contact with me. And I felt that the short intro video really helped with that. This was a new course for me, so I didn't have any student examples for assignments. So this was an opportunity for me to actually do all my assignments. And that was hugely beneficial in that allowed me to carefully craft my instructions. Because I myself had worked through my own assignments so thoroughly, I was able to anticipate any questions that students might have along the way. And then also in addition to that, students had a very good example of how their work should look. And as a result, I found students really were able to produce quality assignments. And if they had any questions, of course, they could contact me via email. However, having all that material very clearly laid out in the Brightspace, I felt really helped students to focus in on what they needed to do. I also need to clarify that this was a completely asynchronous course with a live office hours only. So this is why perhaps that this approach was beneficial in that environment. There were many quizzes in the class, and this was a great way to keep students on track with reading. And they were frequent and low stakes. By low stakes, I mean that students were allowed to take a quiz twice, and we would count the highest mark. And then also, out of the 10 quizzes that they did throughout the course, one of them wasn't counted. And in terms of keeping the students on track with the reading, I felt this was very beneficial for myself because I could track the progress on the course materials by seeing who had done the quizzes and how they were doing on them. And also it kept students online in terms of how they needed to keep going with their reading and the progress throughout the week, because especially with a summer course, they did have to do a fair amount of reading throughout, let's say, a 5-day week. And these quizzes I found were really, really helpful. And I was very surprised that students, number one, kept on track with their quizzes, number 2 did very well with them in terms of their marks. Bite-sized video content, and I'm sure many of you have been contemplating this as you work through your courses. So in terms of the bite-sized video content, this was all material that I personally recorded, and they were short and punchy intro videos to basically almost everything that was in the Bright Space, as we discussed previously. In terms of the bite-sized, I really was keeping to the rule of about a 2 to 5 minutes in terms of length. And I made all these videos in advance of the course opening. And so these included intros to all the modules, all assignments, also any particular software instructions. And also, once the course started, I was recording intro videos for each week in real time. So this allowed me to comment on, for example, what had gone well the previous week, or to address any things that I felt the students might need. And again, all these personally recorded videos were nice and short. And students did comment that they enjoyed that approach. I have a few students that were living together in certain environments over the summer, and they had joked to me that they were watching some of these intros as they washed the dishes or as they had dinner together and things like that. And because they were short, I felt that that was really great, that it was a way that they could connect with me in an informal fashion and feel that engagement and support from me, but also, be able to include that in the routines of their lives, and they could still, remain focused about what was demanded for in the course. I also pre-recorded a short intro video to discuss the syllabus, and also a welcome video for the course. And then this one as well I found was quite useful, the Bright Space mini tour. So this was simply a video recording of myself going through the Bright Space in advance so that students could see how the course was laid out before they even had to delve in. And the Bright Space mini tour, welcome video and syllabus video, those were all in our orientation. So it was the first thing that students could enjoy. In the online environment, it does give us an opportunity to look at some software options. So in terms of my course, I chose 2 different softwares that worked really well, SimVenture Validate and Adobe Spark. And this allowed students to have an experiential learning experience without being in an actual physical classroom. So software choices are going to be different for each person and each course. However, it does warrant looking a little bit outside the box and seeing how software could line up with your course. So for example, for mine, SimVenture Validate is a business simulation software that is used a lot in business and management courses, rarely used in the creative industries. I think we might have been one of their first, and they were quite excited to have us on board, the team at SimVenture Validate. And this I thought was a really great way to give students a good experiential learning process. And then also Adobe Spark is a very simple design software by Adobe. And this allowed students to design things and submit some course assessments using that software. In terms of instructor presence, this was something I was incredibly apprehensive about, given my own background and how much I love engaging with students in the face-to-face setting. So I decided to develop my instructor presence in certain ways. I feel that the personalized bite-sized video content played a big part of that. Another one was the creating of an online community. And this was at the beginning of the course. It was the first thing that students had to do, a participation activity. And this was an opportunity for students to post in a discussion thread information themselves. And this was a great way for students to get to know who each other are, but also a great resource for myself. So I asked students to post who they were, their pronouns, their preferred pronouns, also where they were living at the time of the course, and any hobbies, and what course stream that they are in at Dalhousie, and also why they were taking that course. This allowed me to get some really important information, especially with regards to their location and their preferred pronouns and their interests. And it was a way for me to get to know them a little bit better. And when I was then commenting on assignments, I was able to refer back to this initial participation activity if I needed to reinforce any information that I wanted to have about a particular student and their goals and their interests. And during that first day, I personally welcomed each student and made comments about their interests and why they were joining the course. And I think this was a great way to start things off. Also in my instructor profile, which I included in the orientation, I made a point of personalizing this in a way that I wouldn't in the face-to-face session or face-to-face environment. So I added some personal details that I would keep much more private in our other environment. Why? Because I believe that students needed just that tiny little bit of extra connection. So if we were talking about hobbies, I certainly included my own hobbies and included where I was living and what my family environment is and my partner and my dogs, for example, things like that. Information that I felt would just give them a tiny bit of personalization. I made a point of always sending a lot of group class encouragement through email, and I would do so every couple of days. In the summer course flow, I think that worked well, not necessarily in a whole fall term, but you can all judge how you would want to respond to that. I also made sure to respond to student queries within 24 hours and always kept email contact warm and encouraging and always validated student queries. Because in this online environment, we're missing that face-to-face connection. And if we can foster that in other ways, I think this is going to be beneficial for us and our students. Now, my course in the summer was a course about entrepreneurship. And so I decided to really focus on a course brand, because if I was asking my students to think about their brand, surely I should do the same. And I think that this really helps in our online environment because it allows us to form a visual consistency with everything we do. In the face-to-face environment, we're creating consistency with our presence and also the consistency of the space and how we discuss content and the synergy of what we're doing. However, online, that is disconnected in a way, so we have to provide it in other ways. So I developed my course brand, and we can all do that in individual ways. For example, you can see that CLT has a really clear course brand on their slides. However, I've personalized this a little bit in my presentation today. I really like images, so I've included a lot of images, for example. And here you can see on the side the logo I designed for my course as well. So I decided to develop a logo for my course. I'm not suggesting that everybody has to do that. However, it takes about 5 minutes to develop using a simple software called Adobe Spark, which you can access for free online. And also, I believe there might be some education accounts available also. It's very intuitive and easy to use, and a logo could be made in very, very short period of time. So the logo I presented on all course materials, including any written content and my video content. And this allowed for a unification of all the content that was placed on Brightspace. And I also feel it added a level of professionalism to the visual and the presentation of all the course materials. Our students are very used to seeing things online and seeing this consistency of approach, and they're used to that visual. So the more that we can adapt to that and present things in a way that they're used to seeing, I think that gives them a little bit of confidence in what we are doing, and it also gives us some confidence too. Also, the course brand was consistent with my review notes, which were essentially PDFs of PowerPoints. And so there was a consistency with all that written support material, such as assignments, instructions, and method of assessment. I made sure to use the same opening slide for all review notes, and that was, again, in the PDF format. And there was always a consistency with color and style with the PowerPoints and the PDFs. So I really feel that this allowed to solidify how things could look. And you'll see, again, another logo I've designed for my vocal classes that will start in the fall. And they're going to have access to that on all their written support material. And I think that the students really enjoy that. And I could see how when they were submitting things to me, sometimes some of them had developed their own logos themselves. And that was really interesting to see that they were catching on and sort of enjoying getting creative with that. I think that many of you might find that sort of easy, a creative fix and something fun to do for your materials. For the video content, I did use consistency with my approach there as well with regards to visual and sound. There are many things that are forgiven in terms of video content. However, visual and sound are two that really need to be kept very consistent. And the sound, we can enhance that with just the use of an external microphone and a pop filter. And also with lighting. We can use natural light, for example, when you're facing a window, or anything, an external lighting source, for example, something like a desktop ring light. Now, these tools may or may not be familiar with everybody. However, they're not hugely expensive. They're pretty easy to source and will be very beneficial given that we are in a whole term of online teaching. And I think that these things will really enhance what we do. The reason why the microphone and the pop filter is useful is that it takes away some of the grate of sound in the online environment, and then it really enhances the quality of our video content. In terms of lighting, the most beneficial aspect of that is just that the lighting enables students to see your face and your eyes specifically, and that really helps with engagement and keeping connected. So video recording, I made sure to do that in a professional, neutral spot in my home, and it was always the same spot. So this would, again, create a consistency with how students viewed me and all the material I was presenting them. I also did simple and consistent editing. So every video was edited in exactly the same way. And when I mean editing, very simple. It just means that we are making a nice introduction and a nice fade out at the end. And I branded all the video content with my logo and the title of whatever subject that we were discussing. I was using a very easy software called iMovie that's embedded into my computer system. For those using other operating systems, most will come with something like that to use. It was a little learning process for me. However, I think it was worth it to spend that hour getting to know how to do it. And then afterwards, the editing flow for the video content became really, really easy and wasn't as time consuming. So I felt a very useful way to prepare the video content. And a little bit of tip for the spoken content of videos, because what is the challenge of a bite-sized video content? The challenge is keeping it within 2 to 5 minutes. We often think we can't fill time, but as we all know, we love to talk, and it's easy to get off topic. So making a short list of topics in chronological order and bullet form really helped me to visualize what I needed to say and also to keep me on topic. And the way I organized that for an easy and quick delivery of all these videos was to center align my text topics in a Word document, for example. And then on my computer screen, within the computer, I would just place the document in the upper middle section of my computer screen. So it would be right below my computer video camera. So that is the crucial element of how to set this up, because this will allow you to keep eye contact with your video camera and also refer to your text short list of topics at the same time. Because what we don't want is to have our topics sort of on the side so that we have to keep on looking away from the video camera, because just that consistency of keeping our eyesight aligned with the video camera really helps with engagement and the professionalism of creating this video content. When I mean relationship building with my team, I'm talking about the added team that I was given for my course design over the summer. And this was an invaluable team. I loved working with my CLT course advisor and also my builder. And because I was building, number one, a new course, and then number two, an online course, two things that I didn't know much about when I was diving into this welcome challenge, that having this additional support really was so beneficial. One of the big things about it, though, was pivoting away from the concept of solitary course design, because the course often lives in our mind, or it might live in our lecture notes, and it's not something that we necessarily have to share with others. However, as we're building everything in advance for the online environment, we really need to move away from that solitary course design and also move away from the written order, I feel, into a visualization of how everything is going to look in Brightspace. Organizing the course flow in a way that enables your course builder's work. So in my case, I built a depository with a parallel visual layout to my intended visual layout for Brightspace. And I did so in Dropbox, but people can use whichever software sharing platform that they wish. And so building that visual layout where I deposited all content was really helpful for my course builder. And as a result, it meant that my course builder was able to do absolutely everything for me. It took me a little bit more time to set up this system for my course builder. However, it was very easy for him to go about and do his work. And as a result, for this particular course that I did in the summer, I did not upload a single item onto that course. My course builder did everything, and he did so in a wonderful, supportive way. However, it was made possible by the fact that I was presenting the information to him in a way that made sense to him, and also that made sense and aligned with the way Brightspace is set up. So I do feel that there are some tools for face-to-face teaching environment that we can use as we go forward and move away from this finite time where everything is on. So one of them, I really feel for myself anyway, is that the use of Brightspace is here to stay. I think this is really exciting. Last year in my first year at Dalhousie, I was using Brightspace as an applied voice instructor. And this is a tool that not many folks in applied teaching, as in the applied music lessons, use because it's not necessarily something that they need. I was used to record lots of lessons with video content, so we decided this would be a great way to organize courses. However, I wasn't organizing my Brightspace in the design that was suitable for a distance course, because that wasn't what I was using it for. I was using it as a depository for student assignments, for example, and also a means to video record our lessons. However, the order of Brightspace in terms of organizing weekly student tasks is absolutely here to stay for me, and I'll be using that because I feel it's going to be beneficial for my students, and it's going to help them to know what they have to do and when. Our traditional syllabus will always be the foundation. However, the order of Brightspace and that weekly list of tasks, I feel, is the way forward in terms of student engagement, because students aren't necessarily always as enthusiastic about checking regularly onto their traditional syllabus. And I think that having things laid out in this digital format really helps students just see what they need to do. If I go into my week, what do I need to do and when? And it really helps them to meet their targets. I feel that the order of Brightspace enables students to easily break down their tasks, to track their assignments and projects with success, to craft their assignments with more care because of all the information that is so carefully laid out for them. And as a result, they're going to achieve higher grades. And also, in a way, because they're so independent in the way that they're working through their tasks, they're really taking ownership of their progress. And I hope this enables them to feel empowered. I wonder about a tech recommendation, and perhaps this is in Brightspace already and I'm just not aware of it, but I wonder about the possibility of linking Brightspace courses for each student. So they can view each week's task, for example, from all courses in which they are registered, just on one page. And that would be the tasks, not the content for all weeks, obviously, because that would be too large. But I think if students were able to just pop into Brightspace and see, okay, what do I need to do for week 5, and then have a list of tasks in chronological order that links up with all the courses that they're registered in, I think that would really help them break down what they need to do over that week. I thank you all for joining me and CLT for this lunch hour discussion. If you have any questions about anything that I've brought up, please contact me at that email that I list here, and I'd be happy to discuss any of these thoughts further with you. And also give links to any sort of tech recommendations or software recommendations that were made. And we now have a few minutes left, so it would be great to get some discussion and address any questions that some of you might have.
Thanks so much, Christina. Can you advance you haven't advanced the last slide? It's okay.
Oh, is it there now?
Information.
Our
no, you're still on 22.
Oh, really? It should pop up shortly. Well, I'll just leave it there and hopefully it will become visual soon.
Perhaps you could just type your email address into the chat.
Absolutely, let's do that. No problem.
Because not advancing, that would be great.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage everybody who's here participating today, if you have any questions, to type them into the chat. Christina, I have to say that you really have sort of epitomized that idea that some people are talking about with respect to students' resilience and self-direction in an online course, and how we can manifest and support that. I wonder if you might comment a little bit on that aspect, a little bit more on that aspect of resilience and self-direction, because there's a tension between that and maybe the sort of loneliness and isolation, disconnection for students,
yes,
even less resilient.
Yes, I mean that was something that I had a lot of concern with going in, because I realized students were not only having to shift to an online environment, but they were also doing so in a time of stress, because of constraints created by the pandemic. I was in many ways I was expecting grades to be low, and I don't mean that because I didn't have faith in students. I just was anxious about them adapting to this, because many of us have had anxieties moving forward in our own adaptation. So it would be natural that students would be feeling the same way, or even more so. So I was aware of that, and admittedly, I found that especially their engagement with the tasks and that ownership of how they were moving forward, quite shocking in a very positive way. I felt that the student morale remained quite high, especially when I was checking in with them, for example, in office hours and things like that. So I think we have to watch and keep fostering as much engagement as we can, and be available for students when they need to chat, whether it's office hours or an individual appointment, which students can have when they reach out, and also to welcome feedback from them, especially when we're doing a new course design. So I think that is a way to foster that engagement. I don't think it replaces by any means the connection that we have with our students when we are face to face. And I do worry about how we're going to keep this going, as the pandemic becomes the length of the pandemic, and how that does affect student morale and faculty morale as well, and sort of global morale.
Thank you. There's a few questions in the chat now. Sheila's asking about review notes, and if you can say more about those, for example.
Absolutely. What I can do as well is I can just email also a PDF of a version of my review notes. When I was talking to students, a lot of them said, "Oh, the review notes, that's so helpful," because because what we're not able to have that time where we give the lecture and we discuss all our ideas about the materials in real time, and that was difficult to let go of, and I'm sure maybe a lot of you feel that too. But the review notes were a really good tool, and in a sense they were like a PowerPoint outline, but I just made sure that they were very clear and that they aligned well with the flow of the reading, especially, so that students could do their reading and then read the review notes, and they could definitely also read the review notes right before they took their quiz, for example. But I'll forward Suzanne a PDF of just an example of a module review notes, so that people can have a look at that.
Thanks a lot, Christina. Karen's asking you. Sorry.
Yes,
sorry, about releasing content each week.
Yeah, I did the whole thing at once so that the students could really have a nice look at what needed to be done over, so that they could see the whole arc of things. However, I did feel that that sort of like the dissection of our weekly tasks just helped them stay on track. But I did release everything at once at the beginning of the course, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Evangelist is asking if you can provide some advice on editing the videos.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, it can be
yeah,
very
I
time consuming.
sympathize.
Absolute, like admittedly, okay. So I'd never edited a video, and so I popped into iMovie, which is just the the video software, editing software that I have with the Mac system that I use. I think that one is very, very good. What I did is I watched a few quick YouTube tutorials, and then played around with it. And admittedly, it took a good couple of hours to figure out how I wanted to do that. But then once that was done and I'd established the workflow, I made the editing the same for every single video. So that not only helped me with how I would edit them, but it also ensured that the content was consistent. In terms of what I did technically, I just added a fade in of 1 second at the beginning and a fade out of 1 second at the end. And I made sure that the video started, I clipped it so that it started when I would say, hello, welcome to this module, as opposed to sort of me leading into the computer and turning things on and getting settled. So the students never saw that, and then I'd sign out. And so I would just make sure that the start and end was very clean. And then, because I developed this logo, I just popped the logo in the corner, which stayed on for 10 seconds, as well as a title banner at the bottom of the screen, which simply had the title of whatever subject was being explored. I can also send a video sample to Suzanne so that these resources are available. It's probably easier to see once it's there. And I think then it would be easier to visualize. But I think that the time spent in figuring out how you want to do that editing, admittedly it's extra time, and most people don't. I'm fully aware that most of us don't have a lot of time at the moment. So, but I think it's worth it, and then it goes very quickly once you've decided what you want to do.
Thanks, Christina. Evangelist, I'm just going to add that you can use Panopto to record, and there's some great videos online about how to edit those Panopto videos as well. Panopto can be downloaded into Brightspace, and it does have an editing feature. And I have to say, a colleague of mine in CLT recently did a video about how to pause as you do your video. If you lose your place or whatever, to pause, and then you can go back and just cut out those pauses. And I have to say that was
great.
such a godsend to think about that, because I'm not a performer, and I just find it so difficult, even in a few minutes, to kind of keep that going spontaneously.
That's
so
a
just
really
an
good
extra
point.
feature as well.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know about that, and admittedly, when I've been making mine, sometimes there needs to be a like if the first one might not work, you might have to do it again. If there's been a loss of focus, because it is challenging. I would suggest not making too many in a day. I've spaced it out because it takes a certain sort of performance-oriented approach. So. Be kind to yourselves and how you approach that. It's not easy, but once you get your flow, it will be easier. I found having the text sheet placed right below the video camera was super helpful. It took me a few times to figure out, like, where do I put the text? What do I do? So I don't go off topic. That was super, super helpful. And like, don't go off topic and also keep looking at the camera. Makes it really difficult. But once you sort out those little kinks for yourself, it becomes much easier.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even just figuring out where to look at the camera. Where is the camera? And where am I looking so I look like I'm looking at the
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to think about. Yeah.
Because we're
Okay.
tempted
I
to
don't
look at
see
the
any more
person on the
questions.
screen, right? We're tempted to look at the person at the
Yes.
screen and not
Yeah.
the camera. That doesn't make sense online. It's a big weird shift, but we'll all get used to it.
Yes.
And Panopto is great, and yes, iMovie was the other one. Sorry, I'm looking at Evangelos, the question. Yeah.
That's okay. We're at time. I just want to thank everybody who came today to join us in this session, and also a big thank you to Christina for her experiences. Lots of great ideas there. Thank you so much. And we will be sending out the recording and also the PowerPoint shortly. Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you.